What do maniacs and murderers ask for before their execution? Women, food, or perhaps forgiveness?
My name is Knox, and today I will tell you about the craziest last wishes of criminals who were about to die in a couple of hours.
You will be surprised, especially at the end.
Let's start with a woman, a very cruel woman.
The story of Anne Veros, one of the few female serial killers in the US, has cemented her name in the annals of the criminal world. She was arrested in 1991 and executed 11 years later. What did she do to people? She dismembered and hid the bodies. Can you imagine? Her journey to the execution chamber in Florida was accompanied by high-profile court trials and intense media attention. But it was her last words and wish that added more color to her image. This half-mad woman declared that she despised the US judicial system and wanted to go on a musical voyage to rock music. That's what she called her execution, by the way, and we should expect her back, as she claimed she would return like Independence Day, accompanied by Jesus. Moreover, she maintained her innocence regarding several charges until the end. No apologies to the victims, no remorse, no sympathy. As you might guess, they didn't play rock music for her, and she refused her last meal. And since I started with women, here's another lady for you. Teresa Wilson Bean Lewis was charged and subsequently convicted for the brutal murder of her husband and his son, which led to her arrest in 2002. Why did she do it? Charles J. Lewis, her stepson, had taken out a life insurance policy in preparation for his upcoming deployment to Iraq. In the policy, Charles named his father as the primary beneficiary in case of his death, and Teresa as the secondary, not suspecting that this would hasten his end. Such a huge sum could have drastically changed Teresa's life if everything had gone according to her plan, so she decided to act, killing the family with the help of 2 accomplices. Police caught the woman at the scene, rummaging through her husband's pockets. After the trial, Teresa became the only woman in Virginia on death row. Her story sparked public debate and controversy over the fairness of the death penalty, especially for women. The injection was scheduled for 2010. On the eve of this fateful day, Teresa requested her last meal, which consisted of fried chicken, buttery sweet peas, Dr. Pepper, and apple pie. It seemed she tried to find comfort in simple earthly pleasures one last time before facing the inevitable. In the final minutes of her life, before the lethal injection was administered, Teresa apologized to her stepdaughter, Kathy. She expressed deep regret for the pain and loss she had caused, trying to make amends in her last moments. Although, how can you make amends for killing your own family?
It just doesn't make sense to me.
Gary Gilmore became a true symbol of the complex and controversial history of the death penalty in the US. Why? He requested to be killed. How do you like that wish? His execution by firing squad in 1977 in Utah marked the resumption of death sentences in the country after a 10-year moratorium. Standing confidently and calmly in the face of death, Gilmore addressed the guards with a concise request: "Let's do it." This scene has even been filmed several times, as it sounds quite powerful. Gary turned himself into the police, insisted on the death sentence even though it was banned in the state, and then accepted the punishment, fully understanding his guilt. In my opinion, this is genuine remorse from someone who committed something terrible.
But not all last wishes can be fulfilled in prison.
In the case of Thomas Grasso, it turned into a whole scandal. Grasso, a former thief, was convicted of murdering 2 elderly people during robberies. On December 24, 1990, Thomas strangled 87-year-old Hilda Johnson with Christmas lights right in her home in Tulsa. And what loot did he get? He took $8 from her purse, some change, and an old TV which he later sold for $125. Hilda's neighbor and close friend, Grandma Lana, witnessed the event from her window but was too scared to intervene or call the police. 6 months later, Grasso committed another murder in New York, where he had moved with his new wife, Lana. On July 4, 1991, he killed 81-year-old Leslie Holt, as of Staten Island, stealing his Social Security check. That's when the killer was caught. What did he wish for before his death? For his last meal, Grasso ordered a huge assortment of dishes: stewed clams, mussels, fried ribs, a cheeseburger, fresh strawberries, pumpkin pies, milkshakes, and even SpaghettiOs. It was crucial for him to get that brand, but the prison decided not to bother and served regular spaghetti. Grasso was so furious that he overturned his plate and started throwing objects at the walls. His last words, demanding that the press report what had happened, emphasized how important the details were to him. A killer outraged that he wasn't served the right pasta. Let the whole world know. Madness, but such people do exist. Ray Rector, whose case still raises many questions and debates, came into the spotlight after shooting 3 men, one of whom died. After several days of evading arrest, Rector decided to surrender to a police officer he had known since childhood. However, when this officer arrived to arrest him, Rector unexpectedly shot and killed him. Then, in his mother's yard, Rector attempted to take his own life by shooting himself in the temple. The shot destroyed part of his frontal lobe, and he was rushed to the hospital. At his trial, Rector's lawyers argued his insanity due to the severe brain injury, but the court sentenced him to death. Fair? In my opinion, yes, although some advocacy groups fought for the rights of a disabled criminal. Before his execution, Rector chose a simple meal for his last wish. He ordered steak, chicken, cherry soda, and pecan pie. But what surprised everyone was that he didn't eat it, saying he would save the pie for later. Rector didn't understand where he was, and that there wouldn't be a later. This again stirred public opinion, arguing that a man who didn't even understand his situation was being executed and deserved sympathy. However, this wouldn't bring any comfort to his victims and their families. Here's another similar case. Clarence Ray Allen also left his mark on the American legal system. His execution in 2006 at the age of 76 in San Quentin Prison, California, made him one of the oldest inmates executed in the U.S. since 1976. Allen was already serving a life sentence for one murder when he was charged with orchestrating 3 more murders from behind bars, including the killing of a witness who testified against him. Over the years in prison, Allen lost his sight and hearing, becoming practically incapacitated. Allen's defenders argued that in such a condition, he no longer posed a threat to society and insisted that executing him would be unjust, considering his physical state. They believed that the purpose of punishment was lost and carrying out the sentence would be unnecessarily cruel. However, their plea for clemency was rejected by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, leading to the execution. Before his death, Allen ordered his last meal: fried chicken, a juicy steak, and black walnut ice cream. This choice, although seemingly appetizing, takes on a bitter tone in the context of the death penalty, highlighting the contradictions and complexities of such moments. This case raises several questions about the moral, legal, and human aspects of the death penalty, especially concerning individuals with severe physical limitations. Is it justice, or just the cruelty of a system that can't back down? Feel free to comment, but let's move on for now. Ted Bundy is a name that instills fear and disgust in the hearts of many. Why? This man became one of the most sinister serial killers in U.S. history, using cunning methods to target young women. Bundy used his attractive appearance and charm to lure his victims into a trap. In rainy weather, he would approach them at bus stops, offering a ride home. Few could refuse such an offer from a polite, well-groomed man. But once they were in his car, there was no way back. Ted removed the handle from the passenger door to prevent the victim from escaping. Simple and ingenious, right? After abducting them, Bundy would assault, murder, and then continue to desecrate the bodies. In his home, remnants of food made from human flesh were found, and some bodies he simply hid under the floor. Ultimately, after confessing to 30 murders, Bundy was sentenced to death. When offered his last meal, Ted refused, choosing to die on an EME, PTI stomach. This moment shows that even facing the inevitable end did not bring him to repentance. The monster within him remained unbroken. Here's another criminal who turned his execution into a comedy show. Patrick Knight, convicted of the brutal murder of an elderly couple, became known for his unusual approach to awaiting his sentence. In an interview, he announced a contest, urging people to send jokes so he and other inmates on death row could find some relief in them. Knight talked about inmates who, according to him, might be innocent, although he admitted his guilt, noting that he was not one of them. In the climax before his execution, Knight decided to deviate from his original plan to tell a joke and asked for his final words. "Death will set me free. That's the biggest joke." Another joke. "I'm not really Patrick Brian Knight, but you can't stop it now." Yes, such strange humor. The sheriff who once apprehended Knight commented on his last words, noting that Knight was not much of a comedian.
And it's hard to disagree with that.
Adolf Eichmann, one of the key figures in the crimes of the Holocaust, was responsible for the mass extermination of Jews during World War II. What did he wish for before his execution? In 1962, Eichmann requested a bottle of Carmel, a well-known Israeli red wine. I think it doesn't need explaining that in many religions, wine is compared to blood, and the origin of the bottle was chosen deliberately. As you can imagine, this wish was not fulfilled. Eichmann made it clear that he felt no remorse. Terrifying, isn't it? William Bonin, known as the Freeway Killer, was an American serial killer who terrorized Southern California in the late 1970s. He was sentenced to death for the rape and murder of 14 young men and boys between 1979 and 1980. Bonin was arrested on June 11, 1980, and subsequently found guilty of numerous murders. Bonin chose his victims among teenagers and young men hitchhiking on the highways of Southern California. He lured them into his van, where he would bind, torture, rape, and murder them. Bonin usually killed his victims by strangling them with their own t-shirts or using a crowbar. He often dumped the bodies along the freeway, which led to his nickname. Bonin had several accomplices, including Vernon Butts and Gregory Miley. These accomplices played key roles in some of his crimes, with Miley even being present at Bonin's last murder before his arrest. Bonin was executed on February 23, 1996, by lethal injection at San Quentin Prison. When asked about his last wish, Bonin requested 2 pepperoni pizzas and 3 servings of ice cream, reflecting his calm demeanor towards his impending death. His last words were, "I feel the death penalty is not an answer to the problems at hand." His crimes left an indelible mark on California's history, sparking widespread public outrage and raising questions about highway safety and the need for stricter measures to protect hitchhikers. And finally, the last executed criminal with a very strange request. Miguel Richardson, known by the nickname Silky, was executed on June 26, 2001, in Huntsville, Texas, for the murder of security guard John Ebert. The crime for which Richardson was convicted occurred in March 1979 at the Holiday Inn in San Antonio. Richardson attempted to rob a woman staying at the hotel, but his plans were thwarted by 2 security guards, John Ebert and Howard Powers. During the altercation, Richardson dropped his gun, picked it up, and shot both guards. After the murder, Richardson fled to Denver, Colorado, where he was arrested a few days later. At the time of his arrest, he was with 2 underage girls detained for prostitution. During the trial, they testified against Richardson, claiming he tried to rob the woman while dressed in women's clothing and a wig and shot the guards after his plan was foiled. Before his execution, Richardson expressed thoughts on the importance of love and understanding. He spoke about the need to stop killings and emphasized the importance of having loving parents in everyone's life. His final statement read, "Let my death change society. We don't need more killings, neither minimum nor maximum security, nor the death penalty. We need more loving fathers and mothers." For his last wish before execution, Richardson requested a cake with the Innesquire, issued on February 22, 1990, a date he considered significant as it was his wedding date. Very touching, isn't it? That's all for now. Share your thoughts in the comments. And yes, if you love interesting stories, know how to write scripts, edit videos, or voiceover clips, be sure to contact our Telegram bot via the link in the description. We'd be happy to collaborate. Thanks for watching.